You ever hear someone say, all art is political, or every video game is political? Oh yeah? All video games have political undertones. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Okay, what about, I don't know, Tetris? Yeah, tell me how stacking blocks is political. Well, did you know that the creator of Tetris didn't actually earn a single cent until a decade after its release? Or should I say, he didn't make a single ruble because Alexei Pajitnov hailed from Russia, and Tetris was created under communism of the Soviet Union. That's right, in Soviet Russia, you don't make money from game. Soviet Russia make money from you. So in 1985, Microsoft, Atari, and Nintendo were all embroiled in a legal battle to acquire the rights to publish Tetris outside of the Soviet Union. 3 years later, what would become a timeless masterpiece and the best-selling video game of all time would come to the West. So, wait, is Tetris a political game? I mean, I'm confused. My brain hurts. What the fuck is this doing here? Huh? I mean, help me out here. Is Tetris political?
The question, is this a political game, doesn't actually mean anything, because it's what does the word political mean to you?
Well, everyone's answer is going to be different. But if we want to be boring, the definition of politics is the activities associated with the governance of a country or other area. But in the realm of gaming, it feels like we hear a lot of keep politics out of video games. Stop politicizing video games. Hey, who made those videos? In the realm of gaming, political could be a story that revolves around politics or identity politics. The depiction of world leaders, sometimes getting their heads blown off. That's fun. Can't imagine why Cuba was mad about that one. Politics in video games could be any number of things. Political parties that are represented in game, or fictional governments that might bear a resemblance to something in the real world. Politics could even apply to our favorite friend over here. Yes, Mr. Lootbox. Do you think if I open enough of these, I'll unlock some government regulations that prevent promoting gambling to children? Only time will tell. And this topic can cover everything from culture wars past and present, how games and their stories are interpreted to promote a particular message. Is that message worth promoting? Should games have a message? Which ones? How do you tell? What's up, everybody? This is the Act Man here, and today we're discussing what should the role of politics be in video games, within the confines of a game itself, and within the culture of the studio that creates it. When does politics or political messaging improve a game, and when does it make it worse? Is it about the message or its delivery? How can you tell the difference? Is all media political? Are you fucking bored yet? This is a massive topic to deconstruct, and I think I know just where to start. So there's this game called Sex with Hitler, right? And no, don't go. Wait. I was just kidding. All right. So in Sex with Hitler, Hitler is portrayed as having 2 testicles when historians actually debate this. Why are you leaving? By portraying Hitler with 2 testicles, fans were upset. All right. Politics and video games, best place to start. So there's this game called Sex with Stalin. In the past, on this channel, we've covered how games have been politicized and criticized by various viewpoints and groups. They're too violent.
He was trained to kill with Call of Duty and other video games.
Shut your bitch ass up!
Hey, don't you dare play that Resident Evil 5, you racist.
There is only one acceptable response to a white man shooting waves of Africans for an entire video game. No.
It's in Africa.
But whenever video games are blamed for some societal woe, it's usually a desperate tactic to shift the blame away from whatever the real issue is. And today we're going to do something different. We're going to discuss politics in video games. That's right. But let's go back to Tetris real quick, because none of the game's history or involvement in politics affected how fun Tetris was. Clearly, this was a game that transcended nationalities. Many of you likely never considered if Tetris was political, because that sounds really fucking stupid. On paper, we can't say every video game is political, but you can find deeper meaning in something if you look hard enough, and Tetris is proof of that. Like, did you notice the Moscow Kremlin at the start screen? How the fuck did I never see that before? With that being said, doesn't it seem like an injustice that Alexei was never properly rewarded for his innovation? One could look at this story and come to the conclusion that, well, communism has some issues.
You don't say!
While there are no overt political messages in Tetris, like Bioshock or Deus Ex, it still serves as a... Wait. Tetris. Blocks. In a communist society, we're all just building blocks, pieces of a greater whole, if you will. We have no power or agency on our own, and it's like we're controlled by some mysterious force that forces us down. And it's only when all the pieces work together as a commune that any progress is made, that we have any value. One block out of place and the whole thing crumbles. Tetris is a game about falling in line. Get back to work. I think this type of analysis is part of the fun of what we do here on YouTube. Why do you think the Game Theorists is a channel that's gotten so popular over the years? I miss Matt. A lot of this stuff comes down to interpretation. I look at this guy from Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice. You know what his name is? Paul Antishin. Wait, keep politics out of my Ace Attorney games.
Politics, how tiresome.
That's why they call him the Prophet of Truth, because that's all he spits. You know, sometimes politics can add a whole new dimension and level of intrigue to an existing universe. In Halo 2, I honestly wish we got to explore more of High Charity before it's taken over by the Flood. This gigantic mushroom-shaped space station where a conglomerate of alien races all work together. It's kind of interesting that you see these like elite congressmen in the stands at the start, and then later on they're fighting in the Civil War. How did all these alien races come to work together? Why are the brutes suddenly shaking things up? Tell me more about the Grunt Rebellion.
The taming of the hunters, the Grunt Rebellion. Were it not for the Arbiters, the Covenant would have broken long ago.
The politics of the prophets in Halo 2 and their quest for power and dominance through religious dogma is the driving force of Halo, at least the plot, and it's the basis for their great journey. So exploring the politics of the Covenant leadership objectively deepened the lore of the Halo series, and was a net positive. It also led to some of the best fucking drama and dialogue you've ever heard.
Tartarus, the prophets have betrayed us.
But you know, Nintendo doesn't really do political games, do they? Right, Reggie?
Making political statements are for other people to do. We want people to smile and have fun when they play our games.
And he's right. Games don't have to make a statement, nor should every game be expected to. Although, Super Mario Sunshine has quite the statement to make about climate change if you really think about it. There used to be more sunshine and now we have all this goop everywhere. Fucking Bowser and his dumb amusement park polluting the sky with greenhouse gases. Why is the government of Isle Delfino arresting Mario and not Bowser? What the fuck is this, kangaroo court? Is this really the best place to go on vacation? Okay, I'm sorry. But when making a game about war, specifically modern warfare, are the creators obligated to include some kind of message or theme?
No!
Nope. Just follow your passions. Make what you want and what's most entertaining. But, if you're gonna cover, like, real history, you gotta try to respect that. The cold hard truth is that I don't give a shit whether or not a game has something to say, as long as that is part of the entertainment. If it detracts from that and I'm being lectured, then I tune out. Call of Duty has always been controversial for its ruthless depiction of war, politics, and you know what? Sometimes America is the bad guy. Or at least that bad guy is American. I think General Shepard is one of the greatest villains the series has offered. But while Modern Warfare 2 got loads of flack for some reason, I can't remember why, the Modern Warfare reboot of 2019 was controversial, ironically, because it wasn't political enough. They were taking so much heat, the developers at Infinity Ward had to make a statement about it.
Are we telling a story that has anything to do with the specific governments of any countries that we are portraying? No.
But critics felt the game purposely hid the US's involvement in the Highway of Death mission, an event where during the Gulf War the US bombed retreating Iraqi soldiers and civilians. But you know, it's a video game and we want to sell this to Americans, so let's just say the Russians did it. You guys hate the Russians, don't you? See, I have a problem with including a mission that's based on a real event and then trying to sanitize it. It seemed like Infinity Ward wanted to avoid portraying the, shall we say, questionable things the United States did during the Gulf War. And I don't know about you, but it always pisses me off when Call of Duty just is clearly pulling punches and trying to give us some pussy-ass version of war. I shot at the Nazi. That is my plan. Let's go save the Jews, guys. Hooray. Speaking of, who could forget playing as my team in Call of Duty Vanguard and fighting who? The enemy team. God.
Grandpa, can you tell me about your team? How you fought for your team in World War II? Yes, my team. Look at my glorious team.
No real-world military factions here, people. It's just too offensive. All right. Would you like to open some loot boxes on the beaches of Normandy like your forefathers? As the series seems to continue losing respect for real military conflicts and portraying them as accurately as they can, I too have a declining respect for Call of Duty. Call of Duty fans don't agree on much, but one thing we all agree on is that COD 4 was probably the best. And comparing it to the Modern Warfare remake, COD 4 was way more nuanced. And they intentionally avoided naming real-world countries or people because all they wanted to do at the end of the day was take the style of World War II shooter they had and change it to a modern setting. Even though COD 4 reflects real-world events, it's up to each individual player to interpret what those might mean. But there's clearly no direct political statement preached to the player. It's just pure FPS, solid entertainment. And it depicts modern warfare in a more ambiguous way. Call of Duty 4 was political by nature, not by design, and that's a huge difference that a lot of people don't talk about. What's another good example? World at War. Call of Duty World at War is fucking awesome. It's a masterpiece, but its politics are very far divorced from our current timeline. At least I think they are. So nothing is really controversial about its portrayal of World War II and the horrors that lay within. I think the game is as historically accurate as it can be, and it pulls no punches. World at War starts and ends with the statement it has to make. World War II was fucked up. That's it. We know who the bad guys are. However, while they show the bloodlust, vengeance, and hatred of the Russian people through Reznov, Treyarch did something interesting. They added a character that showed a side of mercy, portraying World War II with more moral complexity than many other World War II games.
Chernov! I am not hearing gunshots!
There is no point, Sergeant. They are already bleeding to death.
Then maybe our friend will have them bleed faster.
The Nazis are bad, but are we going too far type shit. That's why Chernov and Reznov act as your moral guidance through the Russian side of the campaign. And the decision is on the player on whether they carry out Reznov's vengeance or embrace Chernov's mercy. And you get slightly different monologues from Chernov's journal depending on your choices.
His bravery on the battlefield is beyond question, but he has also shown mercy amidst the brutality of the Red Army. His merciless brutality defines him only as a savage, just like the rest of the Red Army.
Now, as an American, we all learn about in school how communism is, well, kind of bad, which it is, but it's interesting then that between the American and Russian campaigns of World at War, American fans overwhelmingly prefer the Russian side. Reznov is just the coolest for starters, and he's in Black Ops 1, but more than that, the story where communism wins and the Soviet flag is hoisted atop the Reichstag, it's portrayed so fucking well, it makes you patriotic for a foreign country that doesn't even exist anymore.
As long as you live, the heart of this army can never be broken.
That is the power of storytelling. I'm convinced the only thing art needs to do is either entertain or enlighten or both. And World at War does both, and seeks only to portray World War II in the dark, gritty, morally complex time that it was. And it did so with resounding fucking success. Some games outright promote an ideology, others avoid talking about that shit at all. And very few games make it their mission to critique a specific ideology. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the man of the hour, Andrew Ryan, who is here to ask a question.
Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?
Bioshock is unequivocally one of the greatest FPS games of all time. The concept and art direction alone it's just fucking perfect. They really got to make a TV series or movie out of it. This is quite literally the game that started the debate on whether video games could be called art. Personally, I think the conversation should have started with Halo 2, but that's just me. Bioshock is in fact a direct response to the novel Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Now, in the book, the United States has become a dystopian hellhole burdened by endless laws and regulations that restrict people's ability to be entitled to the sweat of their brow. The book discusses the morality of pursuing your own self-interest, and it's a rejection of altruism, helping others in need instead of only looking out for your self-interests. Ayn Rand promotes the idea that capitalism, when taken to its most extreme, is the ultimate system of freedom and productivity. Regulations and wealth distribution are forces that restrict the most gifted minds and their ability to innovate in our society. Ayn Rand asserts that it is these great minds in society that keep it moving, the innovators, the intellectuals, and entrepreneurs. And if their talents are restricted, society crumbles because so much hinges on the intellect and mind of so few. Her ultimate point was that when individuals are allowed to pursue success without any restrictions, regulation, or government interference, society thrives. And that's exactly what happened in Rapture. So Ken Levine, director of Bioshock, looked at Ayn Rand's argument and said, I bet. Let's put your theory to the test. Let's see if this works. Spoilers for Bioshock, it did not work.
These sad saps. They come to Rapture thinking they're gonna be captains of industry. But they all forget that somebody's gotta scrub the toilets. What an angle they gave me. I hand these mugs a cart and a bowl of soup, and they give me their lives.
We all know what happened in Rapture. They find a magic sea slug that gives them superpowers through a genetic substance known as Adam, but then they all get addicted. The sea slugs are limited, so some genius German scientist is like, hey, wait a minute, we can just put the slugs in orphan girls and they'll continually produce this miracle drug, and they'll be able to recycle it. And oh, by the way, little sisters were a metaphor for stem cell research and the morality of, using unborn fetuses in scientific experiments. Now, it's one thing to agree or disagree with either Ayn Rand or Bioshock, but the whole point is understanding what things mean. And much like Tetris, without knowing the political inspiration for Bioshock's story and universe, you can still enjoy it like any other game and be totally immersed and enraptured in the world of Rapture. The Little Sisters could be an explicit critique of Ayn Rand and saying, okay, Bioshock suggests that in Ayn Rand's worldview, even orphaned children would be a commodity. Let's make money off of those suckers. One could also look at that incredible moment where you first walk into the lighthouse and you see no gods or kings, only man. Rapture is a godless city, devoid of religion and faith, and that's designed by intent. So there's no accountability from the man upstairs. As history and also Halo 2 have shown, religion can obviously be involved in politics. So when taking that out of the equation of society, do our values also degenerate? Now, the neat part about Bioshock is obviously the ultimate twist, but throughout the game, you basically learn that you have had no free will. You've just been directed by code phrases, by this mysterious voice over the radio, like so many other games.
Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find it? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
And that you never had free will. Well, except for one choice. The Little Sisters present the ultimate question of Bioshock. Do you harvest Adam from the Little Sisters for your own self-interest? Do you end their suffering, or do you act altruistically and with empathy and save them? Do you, as the player, take what you can and give nothing back, or give something back and accept what you're given? These are powerful questions, I think. Now, here's the thing. I've noticed in the gaming zeitgeist, there's this weird fixation on only enjoying media that validates your own beliefs. And truth be told, I've never popped in a game and been like, Bioshock, I sure hope this is a critique of late-stage capitalism and how society needs social programs to help the less fortunate. Who the fuck thinks like that, dog? Just play the game where you beat up and shoot the mutated scuba divers. Even if Bioshock has a message that you ultimately disagree with, the game is still fun as shit, and you don't have to think about that. If you look for political messaging, you can always find it. And if you can't find it, you can just come up with some bullshit. I think what Bioshock does a really good job of is showing that a utopia of the best and brightest people making up society would not work, because the best and brightest people are not going to want to do the dirty blue-collar work that's necessary to keep the gears greased, the water flowing. You know, that guy that fixes the pipes and makes sure this whole place doesn't get fucking flooded. Yeah, you kind of need him in society, because this death trap of a city was built underwater. Why? Did Andrew Ryan know that people can't breathe underwater? Was he stupid? There's tons of debate to be had about, you know, the themes of Bioshock. One thing that's interesting is the idea of a utopia with ultimate freedom for all ultimately can't work. Such a society is ripe for exploitation and corruption, as there are no guardrails in place to stop the main villain, Frank Fontaine. Andrew Ryan could not control or contain Fontaine without violating his own beliefs and yanking the great chain his way. So in essence, Andrew Ryan becomes the very thing he sought to leave. Regardless, I think Bioshock represents politics in video games at its best, or near it. When we have something to talk about and debate, ideas and concepts to share with one another, that's when video games turn into like a fucking book club, right? Bioshock 1 has one of the greatest video game stories of all time, and none of it would have been possible without political inspiration from the real world. It posed an interesting question of morality to the player. And then you had Bioshock Infinite, which offered such thrilling and complex choices as be racist or not. But now let's take a look at an example where politics detracts from the experience, pulls people out of it. Dragon Age: The Veilguard.
If you come across as preaching your political agenda, you're going to alienate everybody who doesn't agree with you.
About as true a statement as one could possibly say. But it's the explanation for why Bioshock gets away with being explicitly political and Dragon Age: The Veilguard doesn't. It's because there is no deeper meaning to analyze behind Veilguard. The characters just straight up tell you the point they want you to take away from everything. You see, the novel Atlas Shrugged and the whole time period of Bioshock takes place in the far distant past, but a fictional version, a believable version. So when you're trying to breach the idea of covering identity politics in a medieval fantasy game, you have to hide that a bit. Recently, EA CEO Andrew Wilson, Mr. Is This Good for the Player, came out and said that Veilguard, quote, failed to resonate with a broad audience. Why do they always fucking say that? Like, can we stop? I always feel like the implication behind broad audience is we don't have enough money. We're not making enough money. But Andrew Wilson believed that Veilguard failed because it didn't have live service features. Everyone knows BioWare and live service go hand in hand like peanut butter and jelly. Now, there's several reasons why Veilguard didn't appeal to that mythical broad audience: corporate meddling, a bizarre rebrand late in development, the 10-year gap between Inquisition not being relevant, BioWare's slow, declining overall reputation, the ongoing layoffs across the industry. But in the focus of this video, we're talking about the writing. BioWare is no stranger to writing games with a diverse cast, who represent different worldviews, religious orders, and parts of these fictional universes. So why is politics now suddenly a problem in Veilguard? Because it's written like dog shit.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
The way to get audiences to think about complex social issues is not to just beat them over the head with the point. Like, they have a fucking coming out part where Tosh just straight up says, I'm non-binary. You'd think being part of some fictional fantastical race known as the Kunari who speak a different language that they would have some kind of different foreign term for that, but no, just straight up non-binary. Oh, that's what they're going for. That's what they're doing. It's clear what the goal of the writers are, and there's nothing for us to interpret about it. It's so ham-fisted, right? And in Dragon Age Origins, you can kill every single one of your companions. Every single one. You hate one of them, tell them to fuck off. But in Veilguard, party members are like unanimous in agreement that, whoa, hey, guys, don't be transphobic. Being transphobic is part of the problem. When really it should be up to the player's choice if they want to recruit this companion and how they want to treat them. In RPGs where you recruit a group of companions, there should always be at least one racist. Give me some fucking drama. People in the real world have racial tensions and Therefore, why would the same not apply to a fictional fantasy realm? Because discrimination might make people uncomfortable, even though it's realistic. And let's not pretend like the idea of some character that breaks gender norms is like inherently a bad thing. You don't have to look far in film and video games to see a deep admiration and reverence for female characters that break typical gender norms and embrace the role typically reserved for masculine men. If your goal is to tackle identity politics and inclusion in video games, or really any issue for that matter, then as Kreia said,
then you will need the contrast.
You will need characters who despise this person's identity and what they stand for, and you, the player, should be given options to talk shit to them, as opposed to every single party member in complete agreement that, hey, discrimination is bad. We see this in Origins, right? The Qunari are basically a society of what it would look like if communism worked. Everyone's inspected at birth, they're given their role at birth, their role is their name. So what you have in Origins is this clashing of beliefs and cultures. Sten comes from the Qunari, where women are artisans and merchants, not warriors, but every female companion can talk to Sten about this. And they don't just say, wow, Sten, you're sexist. No, they say, I can fucking fend for myself. So the game is not telling you what to think or believe or who to agree with or disagree with. Both characters are making their respective points, and it's up to you to decide who makes more sense. That's how it should be. But if this were Veilguard, they would just accost Sten and be like, pull above, you did a sexism. So now I want to talk about the trick to writing politics in video games, because it is a magic trick, and there's no better source to go to than Chris Avellone, one of the main writers for two of my favorite games of all time, Knights of the Old Republic 2, Fallout New Vegas, and several others. This is what he said in an article titled, Can Stories Be Apolitical? He says, quote, they may become political as societal norms change, but I believe it's possible to do apolitical games. I also don't condemn developers who want to do political games or make a statement. I think a game is served better by asking a question, provide a range of perspectives on the question, but then leaving the answer to the player. I try to frame any politics in the parameters of the world, the lore, and the franchise. This is what Veilguard does not do. It frames it within the context of our modern real society, not that of Dragon Age. Chris goes on to say, the reason I take this approach is because I view games as entertainment. If you're purposely pushing an agenda or point of view in your game, especially a real world one that's clearly divorced from the game world, and you're dictating that perspective as correct versus asking a question or examining the perspective more broadly, then it's left the gaming realm and the game has become a pulpit. A pulpit being a raised platform or lectern from which a preacher delivers a sermon. I think a game, especially a role-playing game, can have considerable amount to say by examining what the player brings to the equation and players asking themselves what kind of character and what kind of player they are when confronted with a situation that's not clearly black and white. That is the magic trick of writing politics in video games. It is maintaining the illusion that the player doesn't know what the writers think or believe, that you're not being dragged to what the writers think is the correct position to have. And no game does this better than our last example, Fallout New Vegas. When it comes to writing politics in video games, this is the king. Think about this. New Vegas is written so fucking well. You can be convinced to support slavery and genocide as morally virtuous. God, I love New Vegas. Ugh.
Smell that air!
So, the premise of New Vegas is that nuclear warfare has devastated the world, but Las Vegas has remained as one of the major strongholds that represents a society that has lived above anarchy. Problem is, multiple factions seek power, leadership, and rule of the game's central hub, the New Vegas Strip. The main quest of the protagonist, the courier, you, revolves around which political regime you decide to help and install as the new superpower of Vegas. And it's up to the various NPCs and leaders to convince each individual player that, NCR is the best choice. No, Caesar's Legion will be the strongest, but Mr. House is already familiar. Fuck it, let's choose anarchy. That's why this game works so well. Because, obviously slavery's bad.
God, I just hate slavery so much. If I could go back in time and undo slavery, I would.
However, The issue of a nation and world devastated by nuclear fallout presents an unprecedented series of circumstances. The world is in chaos right now. Society has essentially had a factory reset, so in order to fight the growing anarchy and chaos, fear must be spread throughout the wasteland. And that is what Caesar and his legion do. That is what they epitomize. The ends justify the means. Let's look to the longest lasting civilization of human history and replicate their beliefs and their style of government.
I used Imperial Rome as the model for my legion precisely because it was so foreign, so alien. In Rome, I found a template for a society equal to the challenges of the post-apocalyptic world. A society that could and would survive.
In pretty much any other fictional universe, the Legion would be seen as the obvious villains. But in Fallout, the world we knew it is gone. The rules have changed. What pillar of strength does humanity fall back on when so much progress has been lost and destroyed? So reverting back to the beliefs and governance of the longest lasting civilization in human history, it's not a moral decision, it's a pragmatic one. Unite the people through force and fear, abolish the anarchy and chaos, and then we can worry about human rights, maybe.
Until now, every tribe I've conquered has been so backwards and stunted. Enslavement has been a gift bestowed upon them. My conquest of the Mojave will be a glorious triumph, marking the transition of the Legion from a basically nomadic tribe to a genuine empire.
Throughout the game, you'll meet NPCs who give their reasoning for why you should support one faction over the other, and vice versa. By going with Mr. House, you're sticking with the status quo. A man who has the most experience governing this area in this time, but you're also embracing a man who's unwilling to change his mind. An ancient, old, withering tycoon far removed from the daily struggles of the everyday common man. Is this guy really the best choice? He sits locked in his palace and preaches about getting humanity back on the right track, but is he only doing that for his own self-interest? Is he shrugging Atlas? Choosing Mr. House is the choice of an autocrat, the worst kind, one who can live forever with the power of technology that he hoards for himself and defend any attack on his body with robots. Big Brother is always Mr. House is always watching. That being said, he knows New Vegas better than anyone, and his robot army is certainly capable of establishing peace and order through threat of force. Lastly, the NCR is the I have hope and faith in democracy choice. A noble, relatable goal on the surface, but as time passes, you start to see all of the inefficiencies of the NCR. How quickly they're also willing to annihilate opposing factions without a second thought. Wait, what? You want me to kill the entire Brotherhood of Steel? By choosing the NCR, are you choosing something that is in the process of failing? Are you just foolishly clinging on to hope that the ways of the old world can work out here in the wasteland? They're all questions for you to figure out. But New Vegas is the premier example of politics done right in video games, especially in RPGs, because we can freely discuss and debate the morality of our choices within the context of the game. I think it's important, especially for RPGs, and it would have made Veilguard better if the game lets you be a piece of shit. And that's fun. Shut up, bitch. Stop preaching morality to me. I'm role-playing as a dickhead. Each faction in New Vegas struggles in different ways that match the flaws of their ideology, and it really comes down to what each individual player responds and is receptive to. Do you trust in the status quo? Have faith that democracy will work? Or say fuck all that noise? Like any form of media, politics are an integral part of video games. But nobody wants politics to be an integral part of every video game. You can find deeper meaning if you look for it, but thank you, Nintendo, for letting me wash goop off the walls without preaching to me about the negative effects of climate change. Yes, thank you, Fallout New Vegas, for letting me roleplay as a terrible person without feeling like one in the real world. Politics in video games is not a matter of making a statement, but rather, as Andrew Ryan put it, asking a question. So, is all art political? No. Art is what you make of it. Art is not what you see, it's what you make others see. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to the Actman for more awesome content. Thanks to all my supporters on Patreon. I love you so much. If you want to support the channel, that's a great way to do it. We covered a lot of territory in this video, so let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Alright everyone, that's all I got for today. This is the Actman signing out. Peace!